All further offensive activity on the Monte Cassino front ceased while the Allies were preparing for the fourth battle. This time, the plan was devised by Alexander's Chief of Staff, General John Harding. Harding studied the mistakes of the previous battles and concluded that the most fatal of these had been committing few divisions on a broad front. Harding's plan, codenamed Operation Diadem, was similar to that of the first battle, a massive offensive on the entire length of the front, which included attacks on the enemy flanks and a central thrust at the entrance of the Liri Valley. The crucial difference to the first battle was that the objectives, previously assigned to 7 divisions, would now be assigned to 4 Army corps. With the beachhead at Anzio now secured, a large number of new, fresh divisions came to replace the exhausted ones at Monte Cassino. This transfer of forces was carried out in small units to maintain secrecy and surprise, and took more than a month to be completed. Operation Diadem involved major redeployment of forces. The left flank of the line was occupied by the U.S. 2nd Corps, which was reinforced by 2 infantry divisions, the 85th and the 88th, a total of 50,000 men. Their objective was to attack up the coast along Route 7 and link up with the 6th Corps at Anzio. The French Expeditionary Corps took over the positions of the British 10th Corps and was also reinforced by 2 divisions, the 1st Motorized and the 4th Moroccan. The middle of the front line was occupied by the British 13th Corps, with the 4th British and 8th Indian Divisions at the spearhead of the attack. On the extreme right flank, the newly introduced Polish 2nd Corps would attempt to eliminate the last paratroopers defending the Cassino Heights. By April 28th, all these units had taken their respective positions under strict order not to carry out reconnaissance patrols, since the risk of a prisoner being taken could lead to the failure of the operation. The Poles were the only ones who behaved in an undisciplined manner. They were all too eager to show their hatred for the Germans and defied fundamental rules like camouflage and concealment to provoke their opponents into a fight. Unconcerned about their own safety, they were walking upright among the trenches and scorned their entrenched British comrades for what they considered as cowardice on their part. For the majority of the Polish troops, this was the first battle, and many of them paid in blood for their reckless gallantry. Operation Diadem started on May 11th with an artillery barrage of 1,600 guns. The infantry attack followed in the early hours of May 12th. The 2 American divisions failed to make any progress despite being on the quieter sector of the front. After reaching the Garigliano River, they came under machine gun fire from 160 pillboxes of the defending 94th Division. General Clark, who wanted to be the first to arrive in Rome, was furious with the poor performance of his troops. In the Polish sector, the 5th Krasowa Division crossed the Phantom Ridge to attack Point 601. The 2nd Battalion of the 3rd Parachute Regiment, which defended the town during the Third Battle, was once again at the forefront of the fight. The slopes of Phantom Ridge had been pre-sighted by German artillery, and the Poles found themselves in the middle of a defensive fire on rocky ground, which offered no cover. The 3rd Carpathian Division captured Point 569, and elements of 2 companies reached the northern and western slopes of Point 593. The Germans counterattacked 5 times with the reserves of 1st and 2nd Battalions and recaptured the hill. Meanwhile, the Polish 2nd Armored Brigade was advancing along the Cavendish Road in a repetition of the disastrous New Zealand attack 2 months prior. This time, the road had been mined by the Germans, and all destroyed tanks of the last battle had been turned into small pillboxes. The dense minefields stopped the 5 leading tanks in their tracks, and a 6th was knocked out by an anti-tank weapon. 20 engineers were called up to clear the path, and within minutes, 18 ended up either dead or wounded. By the afternoon of May 12th, the Poles had already suffered over 3,000 casualties and then retreated to their starting positions. With only 700 men, the 3rd Parachute Regiment had staved off the first Polish attack. At the most crucial sector, the 13th Corps began the construction of bridges over the Rapido River, according to schedule, making significant progress. A Gurkha battalion crossed the river to attack the village Sant'Angelo. The ground between the village and the river was covered by machine gun and artillery fire. All along the front, the attackers came up against extensive minefields, barbed wire, and fortifications. The failure of the Polish attack left the British right flank exposed, and the mortars in the monastery were directed against the 13th Corps. Other units had much worse luck. 40 boats ferrying a brigade of the 4th Division were knocked out by artillery, sending the majority of the troops to the dark bottom of the Rapido River, which had already claimed so many lives before. By the end of the day, the 13th Corps covered only 500 meters on the enemy side of the river. The Germans didn't have the strength to mount a determined counterattack, which allowed the British to hold their weak bridgehead. The results of the operation were certainly not impressive on the first day, but on May 13th, the German line began to collapse. Under the supportive fire of tanks, the Gurkhas of the 8th Indian Division captured Sant'Angelo. Tanks of the 1st Canadian Armored Brigade crossed the Rapido, and the German artillery batteries in the mountains were attacked by fighter bombers. On the Allied left flank, the French Expeditionary Corps made rapid progress. Castlefort was captured by the Algerians with support from the 1st Motorized Division. Montemayo was captured by the Moroccans, who could now turn right to assist the 13th Corps. By May 18th, the 71st Division had suffered more than 5,000 casualties and retreated with only 100 men fit for combat. As a result of the French advance, the position of the 94th Division had become untenable, and the U.S. 2nd Corps finally broke through the overstretched line. In Cassino itself, however, the British had made no progress at all. The 1st Parachute Machine Gun Battalion was decimated, but repulsed every infantry attack against the town, and the 1st Parachute Anti-Tank Company destroyed 20 tanks by May 17th. As the entire 14th Panzer Corps was retreating on May 17th, the 1st Parachute Division and the Polish 2nd Corps were left on their own to fight each other. The hills and the monastery had long lost their tactical significance, and yet both the Germans and the Poles were determined to hold on to their positions. The German paratroopers had so far repelled dozens of relentless attacks directed against them and were too proud to retreat. The Poles, on the other hand, saw Monte Cassino as the ultimate prize of the Italian campaign. In the second Polish attack, 2 fresh battalions of the Krasawa Division, supported by a rolling artillery barrage, occupied the northern part of Phantom Ridge. Using this position as a springboard, they attacked Colle Sant'Angelo, while the 3rd Carpathian Division attacked points 569 and 593. All 3 vital locations had been captured by 11:30 hours. As usual, the Germans quickly organized a counterattack with all possible artillery support. By nightfall, points 593 and 569 were recaptured, and a part of Colle Sant'Angelo was given up to the Germans after a 10-hour battle. The second attack cost the Polish Corps another 1,000 casualties. On the German side, the 1st Battalion of the 3rd Parachute Regiment suffered the majority of casualties. The battalion's 1st company was down to 3 men, including the commanding officer, and the 3rd company was annihilated. Even the wounded who were still able to use a rifle were forced to fight on. While the Poles were fighting for possession of the hilltops, the Liri Valley had been overrun by the 13th Corps. With the 1st Parachute Division isolated, General Heydrich realized that any further defense of Monte Cassino was pointless and ordered the remnants of his division to retreat. On May 18th, the fighting around the monastery and Snakehead Ridge had ceased. By 0300 hours, the town was under British control. At the Hotel Continental, the British found the last assault gun that had defended the ruins of the town for 3 months. On Phantom Ridge, one last squad of Germans fought to the last man under the impression that the Poles don't take prisoners. A Polish patrol of 6 men was sent to the monastery to see if there are any Germans left defending it. They found nothing but 16 seriously wounded Germans who could not be evacuated, along with 2 doctors who were treating them. At 10:15 hours, the Polish flag was raised over the ruins, and a bugler played St. Mary's Call to announce the victory. The total Allied losses of the 4 battles for Monte Cassino amounted to 55,000 killed or wounded. The heaviest proportional losses within the Allied forces had been those of the Polish 2nd Corps. 3 days of fighting had cost them over 4,000 men killed or wounded. After breaching the Gustav Line, the Allied armies continued their drive towards Rome. The withdrawal of the 1st Parachute Division was covered by 4 paratroopers inside an entrenched Panther tank in the Leary Valley. They slowed down the Polish advance for 4 days, destroying 17 Sherman tanks. The remnants of the German 10th Army escaped when General Clark refused to move his 2 corps to Valmontone and seal off their escape route. Instead, General Clark shifted the bulk of his forces to the northwest and captured Rome on June 5th. Eventually, the fall of Rome was overshadowed by the Normandy landings the very next day, and any strategic success out of the Italian campaign was quickly forgotten.